welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who wishes he were the 14th warrior in the 13th warrior. It's Adam Hodgins.
That has been my wish since 1999, that I could have been the 14th warrior.
I mean, so would you have just snuck on the boat?
Yeah, I think the way I get onto that that Norse boat is being weaker and feebler than the Arab guy. Yep. So I don't even register as not a threat, but even register as a person to those Norse guys. And so I'm just there by association. I'm kind of like, remember the old She-Ra show? And there would be that little guy they would put in the background of one scene, and they're like, that was the game, is during the episode you had to find him. It was like, Where's Waldo during the episode of She-Ra. Oh, wow. That's what I would be in the 14th Warrior. I'd be like, where'd you see me today, kids? I was on the boat in this scene.
Now, would you be angry if they're like, there's 13 of us, and you're like, well, they know I'm here?
Yeah, you can't be, if you're on that boat, you can't be angry. Yeah. Because that movie is a wonder to behold. So to behold it from firsthand experience would even be better.
They're even jovial. They're very jovial on that boat.
They're literally washing their face in other men's snot, and they're happy about it.
Like, they never argue.
No.
This movie taught me that Vikings don't argue.
No, absolutely. Very, very much so. And I think Vikings get a bad rap. I don't think we celebrate Vikings enough. Like, aside from the DreamWorks Dragons franchise, do we really have a good Viking movie or like, of course we love 13th Warrior, but other than that, is there like a good classic Viking tale?
Kirk Douglas in the 50s did Vikings. I used to like that one a lot. But they weren't really Vikings though. Dude, who's the guy, the $6 Million Man with the mustache?
Oh, Steve Austin, yes. But it was Lee Majors.
Lee Majors. He's in a movie called The Norseman,
right.
Filmed in black and white. They wanted to film it in Canada, but he wanted to film it in Florida.
Makes sense.
So they're riding boats around with palm trees in the background. They're all incredibly shaved. Lee Majors has a mustache that is immaculate, which means people on his boat are shaving his mustache. It's called The Norseman.
With giant Viking swords.
Yeah, I don't think people knew, like... Also,
but we don't have a Shogun, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we have Vikings. I love that show.
No, but that's like 2016 that kind of came out. I'm talking about I don't know. I think Vikings get a bad rap. I took a bunch of grade 8 kids on a field trip to the Ottawa Museum of Canadian History. And in Canada, we're very proud of our Aboriginal people being the First Nations, we call them, because they're the first to settle here. But so we're going on this tour, and the tour guide says, and there was one little display of a boat and a sword and a toque and a sweater. And she goes, this is, because the Vikings were actually the first to settle in Canada for the whaling, but then they went home and we don't really consider them to be the first to settle here.
Oh.
So our country denies Vikings that right.
It's like there's Columbus Day, but it should be Viking Day.
Right. We should be really just wield around swords and like armored hats here in Canada, but we don't.
Wow. You just kind of, there's like an asterisk by them. Like they didn't stay.
Yeah. No, they were here, but then, they went back to Viking land.
Well, you can't keep Vikings down.
No, but I did get her very angry at me because the rest of the tour, I kept asking questions about Vikings. Who'd win in a fight? A First Nations warrior or a Viking servant? And things like that didn't go over well.
You shook her to her core, didn't you?
I did. I really kind of...
Because on those tours, you have your spiel. And sometimes when you get your spiel interrupted, it's hard to get back to it.
You don't know where to go. It's over, man.
That's why I never have spiels. I just kind of let it flow. I let it go.
You got to know what you're saying and not just read the script.
I'm much like the Vikings. I just kind of get in a boat and attack whatever coastal village is close to me.
Right. But speaking of not going over well, this movie in 1999, huge flop.
They just dumped it in the theaters.
No promo, no nothing.
Nothing.
And so I think I might have mentioned this before, but my mom and I often go to the movies together, still to this day. We're very excited about Creed 2. That's going to be our one this year.
Oh, my gosh.
But this was the one that we went in 1999. This is one of the ones we went and saw together.
I went with my mom as well.
Oh, see, look at this.
And we were, I'm 36, so I went with her when I was 17. I wasn't that cool teenager. I was like, I'm going to go with my mom, the 13th Warrior.
I'm 37. I was in exactly the same situation. But again, Zorro had just came out. So Banderas and Desperado was one of my favorite movies.
Oh man, that was 94. Yeah.
And so Antonio Banderas was like, he was, I was okay by him. And movies like Robin Hood and like these kind of historical, legendary kind of movies were really in my wheelhouse. And so this just really ticked all my boxes. Like I love this movie, but again, it's tough. More so in 2018 when you love a movie than read the internet and you're like, well, maybe I was wrong. Like maybe I don't love that movie. But no, I thought this was great when I saw it, but nobody loved it.
I read an review by Ebert today, and he was hating on it. And I think this movie just had I mean, I can't speak for everyone, and there are some uneven moments in this, and you can feel some of the reshoots in the film with the added little relationship thing. And then they kill that. There's like a weird side plot about some prince that they just drop. They didn't need that.
Yes.
But that was added. That was added later on. And you know what's funny? I remember I was talking to my brother. He went and watched it because he was at college at the time. He's like, "Why'd they kill that big guy? He'd have been helpful." And I was like, that makes sense. Like, why did that? But yeah, Ebert didn't like. I think
they were just establishing how badass that guy was, though. Like he toyed with him.
Yeah, that dude was huge. Oh no, the little guy was awesome. Yeah, he was a badass.
Yeah. No, he was their secret weapon. And I think it was like, you guys are Vikings, but we are the 13 warriors. Like, don't confuse those two things here for just a second.
Listen, we get that you're tough. You're good with a sword, but we're, like you said, we're the 13 warriors.
Yeah, no, we're the big deal.
And maybe we'll consider the 14th warrior, but probably not.
We might get there.
Yeah, that's right. So, but
he's on the boat.
You know what I think about this movie is it seemed to have a lot of bad buzz. A lot of the reviews that I was reading from 99, they're like, this was filmed 2 years ago and it sat on the shelf with reshoots and they just dumped it in the theaters. That's not like that. I don't know whose voice that was, but they.
No, I love this review character you have. I think we should just explore this more.
You know, I don't even want to consider this movie because they just dumped it in theaters and it's been delayed. Like, I think that was what people did. I think they went into it with a negative vibe. And I think that happened with John Carpenter and a few other movies that were delayed or had budget problems. Whenever there's a movie that has a lot of budget, Lone Ranger. So I really like John Carter's a serviceable movie. It's fun. But Lone Ranger had a ton of bad buzz about it. People hated it. But it's a visually inventive and weird and fun movie.
I like Lone Ranger. John Carter's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, see, and you know how much bad buzz it has?
I love that movie.
Huge. I wrote an article about it, like just how, and this is years and years ago, about how just the press kind of buried it before it came out. And you know what's funny? I worked that following pilot, and my role was to run in on handcuff James Purefoy and take him out of a room. Mm-hmm. And if you see the following pilot, just go to the end, you'll see me in it. And during the scenes, I was talking to Purefoy. I'm like, hey man, what happened to Carter? I love that movie. He's like, everyone loved it. He's like, we all thought great things. I was going to have a big role in the sequel. And then he's just like, bad buzz. People didn't like it. This negativity.
Yeah, and I think too, I think one of the producers wanted to, cause lots of those guys like Favreau and all like, even Defoe who was in there, they all like loved the Princess of Mars books, right? Like they were all huge John Carter fans. And so they were all very cool with the idea of keeping everything secret. Like, don't let the people see what the Tharks look like. Don't let. And so there was no toys, there was no posters, there was no Disney machine behind it.
Yeah.
And then again, the Disney formula of nobody wants to go to Mars and no one cares about princesses that are boys. So they're calling it a Princess of Mars. They scrapped that title and called it John Carter, what does that mean? Is it a lawyer? Is it a stand-up comedian?
Sounds like a sequel to The Firm.
Yeah, exactly. So, but again, I think if Disney's not behind something, no matter how good the movie is, they need that Disney machine. And I think this is what happened in 13th Warrior. There was no hype for it whatsoever. Yeah,
and I really think that it was just bad buzz. But what I love most about this movie is, so I was reading a lot of this there's not much behind the scenes talk of this film. So I did as much digging as I could. And we found out director John McTiernan, who also did Die Hard and Predator, he took a plane out by himself. You probably read this, and flew around. They were going to go to Norway, but he's like, they cut all the trees down. It looks barren. It looks soft. He's like, but I was flying around British Columbia, and there was just an area I found surrounded by trees for 5 miles. And they filmed there. Yeah. This movie, The Revenant got a ton of bad buzz. for shooting in the wilderness. And I mean, it was an absolute insane shoot from all accounts.
And it's an exhausting movie to watch because of that.
And this movie, though, it holds up. This movie's going to hold up in 20 years because the sets are built practically. There's a lot of in-camera shots. There is some visual effects, but for the most part, they built big sets. They put 40 people on horseback, put bear outfits on them, and have them charge with flames in their hands towards the camera. These hold up.
That's why it does, and that's why Conan the Barbarian is one of my favorite movies, because it's always going to look like Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah,
like it's no sound stage. They built this city, and they built and there's something to be said about that in camera. You're watching. It's almost like you went back in time and just filmed the Norsemen doing their thing, and that there's nothing artificial about it.
Mm-mm. And also, I like that Banderas, much like Kurt Russell in Big Trouble in Little China, Banderas wasn't the tough guy in the beginning of this movie. He just got off of 2 Desperado and Zorro, massive buzz, and he played the little guy who becomes the tough guy. But in the beginning, they make fun of him. So I love how he went into this without an ego. And and did this. Like, this is, I don't know. I love it. I love this movie.
I think that I don't even consider Banderas the hero of this movie. I think he's the narrator of this movie. Yeah. And he's actually telling the story of the 13 Warriors and of Beowulf.
Yeah. And
I think we see it through his eyes, because I can relate to Banderas. I've been the small guy before. I've never been the alpha, like, the big Norseman is. So I don't think this is his story. I think he's just telling the story of this adventure.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think. And so Bolvife, right, is the hero of this movie. And
he's the guy.
Everybody, not everybody, but when you talk to a majority of them, mostly men who are our age, when you talk to them about Bolvife, everyone loves him.
Everyone does.
Dudes our age love Bolvife because he's just he's all business. He kills the well, I guess we'll get into the movie on, but just the stand that he makes, the way he leads, like just the whole dude's demeanor. So you talk to him,
also the way he commands a room. Like, there's 12 alpha males there. Nobody questions his word.
Yeah, I mean, if one of us were the leaders, there'd be infighting everywhere. People would be scheming to get the top.
We'd still be discussing whether to bring the Arab with us or not.
Yeah. So Bolvife just takes care of business, and oh man! But this movie, though, they said that the budget ballooned up to about $180 million inflated for today's money.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? I think that's a reason why it still is building and has a cult audience, because it looks great.
And again, it's way more expensive to be on set shooting than on a sound screen, or like in a sound stage with green screen. And so the reason it costs so much money is also the reason it looks so good.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant to watch. One of my favorite things at the beginning of the movie is, and this is coming from a pastor, but that their religions are compatible. So you have like the Arab advisor. So Banderas is exiled from his kingdom because he seduced the king's wife, right?
Yeah.
So then he gets sent out with like his buddy there, his advisor, Omar Sharif, who then's like, oh, you're gonna get called in this adventure, and then the Bone Lady comes in and casts down like the bone lots, and so we get the Arab religion, and then we get like this Norse like witchcraft. And somehow they're both like pointing in the same direction in very compatible religions.
Yeah.
Which always, I was like, that's an interesting twist that isn't explored more often. Like, what are their roots? Do they actually combine back to the same deity? We don't know that, but we do know all signs are pointing that you will be the 13th guy.
Yeah. And he was not happy about that.
No, he wanted to write poetry and pray. That's what he wanted to do.
I do love, though. So in the beginning of the film, he gets sent away, and there's these, raiders, whatever, going to attack his party, and some Vikings just randomly roll up on a river, and then the marauders run away. They're like, run away, Monty
we know
Python.
better.
Yeah, exactly. We're not messing with Bolvife. And what I like, though, is the people in Antonio Banderas'